right? Now, the big concern about everything LLM is reliability, right? Like we have a couple of things we're working on actually in-house that we can't really productionize yet because agents are not as reliable, right? Now, there's one thing we've recently discovered, and I don't mind shouting out the tool BAML because that makes not just agents, but working with LLMs more reliable. Now, I'll give you a little bit of context, right? So BAML, I've actually been using BAML for a little while. So I met Vaibhav like late last year. He's a great guy, by the way. Like he spent like an hour just to go into my code, debug it. At that time, like I was setting up Olama. So we were setting up Olama provider on my machine remotely. He helped me out, and we met in Seattle. Great dude. Like I think the whole engineering team is cracked. Those guys are going to do well, I think. The developer experience they've created is amazing around it. But there's something about this that makes this experience very delightful and makes it so that LLMs might be reliable. Now, I know you've done a lot of work on this and stuff.
Yeah.
But how is this potentially a solution to the reliability issue?
Right. So, I mean, whoever doesn't know BAML, guys, check it out. I'm ready to put my entire weight behind it. It's so freaking good. But going back to what BAML is, or where does it fit in this entire agent space? I think the answer to that is that in your agents, there's a lot of business logic, like checking whether the SQL query was right or not, and actually talking to the LLM, right? BAML is trying to solve the problem of talking to the LLM. So it's not an agent tool. It's a building block which you can use to build agents on top of, right? That's what BAML tries to be. Now, how is BAML trying to solve the reliability problem? Well, how should I put this? So BAML essentially, it shines when it's trying to do structured responses, right?
That's what I started using it too.
I think that is the one use case which it really shines in. If you just have a string response, then BAML might just be an overkill. But I think the experience is good enough that you would still use it. But the main reason for using BAML is definitely structured responses. Now, most of the agent tooling out there, including LangChain, Pydantic AI, again, Pydantic AI, good tool, but still, the way they think about it is, hey, we'll ask the LLM to give an answer back in JSON, and then we'll validate if the JSON is right or not. And that's pretty much it. Is that the best way to do this? Like, think about the problem. Like, if we go deeper into the problem, what if the JSON is malformed? And not everything can be described in JSON. For example, what if you want to generate some code, right? But generating code in JSON would require the entire code to be in a single line. That's not feasible. How do you do that? Moreover, let's say you're building a RAG app with citations, right? So you want to print out your entire what do we call it? The response out on your chatbot or wherever, but you want to make sure you reliably show the citations as well. Of course, you can rely on the model to, insert that links in the markdown and, do the citations for you. But is that the best way to do this? Is this reliable? Probably not. So what I'm trying to say is we need to go deeper into the way LLMs best response. So like code, they like to write it in multi-lines because we like to write it in multi-lines, right? Citations, it's better to write it as a JSON array, right? And have a text blob, and the JSON array has references to the text blob. And your front end handles the citations part or making it links, okay? That's a more reliable way to do it. That's easier to test way to do it because now you can actually, let's take the citations example, okay? Whenever you're doing a RAG app, you have a text response, you show it on screen. One, you can rely on the LLM to put the links directly in the response, but it might screw up. Now, a better way to do it would be, hey, LLM, you create the entire text blob for me and give me an array of objects. Each object will be a sentence along with a link, right? My front-end code will find that sentence in that big text blob and insert a link for it.
Right.
Now, this is way more testable because now what you can do is you can write a test saying that, first of all, are all the citations actually a part of the main response? Next, are all the citations actually valid? Are they pointing to the right links?
Yeah.
Are these the citations you expect? Like, for example, for your test cases, you want to make sure that your RAG application always cites 3 examples because those are the most important ones for a given question. But if you just had the text blob, writing those tests would be like crazy hard. But now, since you have a JSON array, it's so much easier to test these things out. So what I'm trying to say is by deepening into the structure response space, and by not enforcing the hard limits of JSON onto the model and being a little bit loose with it, you are able to achieve a lot more. So the biggest point of BAML is not that it's helping you write tests. It's shifting the way you work with LLMs in the first place to make the code more testable. Right? Like the entire philosophy that TDD is great, like test driven development is great in engineering. Why? Because it forces you to write functions which can be testable, right? So changing the way you write code can help with making it more reliable. That's the entire philosophy TDD is based on. BAML is kind of trying to do something similar here. So it's not just that, oh, BAML will magically make your code more reliable. It doesn't work that way. It just changes the way you do things to make testing a lot more easier and a lot more intuitive for an engineer. That's the beauty.
And just even actually their playground to test it is amazing, right? You click a button. I don't want to run my code to test, right? I want to test the prompt out.
Yeah.
And I know they actually have some other stuff coming that,
Yeah.
that'll help make this easier.
Yeah.
Maybe by the time this is up, they'll have that announced.
Yeah.
But the other thing, I think it forces you to think about that abstraction. We talked about that abstraction earlier, but at its core, it can be just the prompt, right? You can just be at the prompt layer, single prompt.
Yeah.
Let's make that prompt have a structured output.
Yeah.
Use the output of that.
Yeah.
And that's all BAML does, right?
Yeah.
Even then, that makes a lot of smaller models a lot more reliable.
Yeah.
But then you could actually abstract it more, right? There's like, you can have fallbacks and, different decorators and there's a lot of other stuff under the hood.
Yeah.
What's something that you personally used using BAML that you thought, oh my God, this is crazy. Like this is like way different than how you used to do it, and this just makes my life easier or makes this small model, dumb model way better.
So actually, I already hinted at it, but one is the way you look at prompts. So the thought process, I think that's the biggest hit for me. Of course, there's a lot of engineering marvels they're doing under the hood as well. We can talk about it. But I think the biggest one for me is your prompt is just a function. In BAML, for folks who don't know this already, in BAML, you write a prompt as a function. You literally define your types, and you can say my function takes an argument and it returns an argument. And the argument is not just string. It's literally that type. And that's a hint to the BAML parser, which works under the hood, to coerce the LLM's output in the right types. So whenever you interact with the model, you interact it through functions in your language, so they generate the entire client stuff for you. And you don't have to worry about type safety anymore because it's just taken care of, right? And of course, it does a lot more under the hood. One of the things it does under the hood, which I really love, is it's not strict about JSON, right? A lot of the other tools, Pydantic AI, anything, Instructor, they all use JSON in a very strict mode. One big problem with JSON is strings can only be single line. There are no comments in JSON, right? But if you want to generate code or if you want to do the RAG application I just spoke about, it's easier to let the model use multi-line JSON or multi-line strings and allow it to insert it into JSON. So you still want structured output, but you still want the leeway to do multi-line strings. So JSON breaks here. BAML's parser is smart enough, or let's say forgiving enough, that it's go like, hey, model, okay, sure. You try to use backticks to make a multi-line code response or a multi-line string response within a field in JSON, which is not allowed. But you know what? I'm gonna accept that. And it magically gives you the perfect JSON output for yourself. So it's allowing the LLM do things in a way which is more intuitive for the model because it aligns better with its training data. And not and it's eliminating the need for you to worry about extracting the right data from it. Like another example would be chain of thought. Yeah. In chain of thought, you let the model think before you actually get the JSON output, right? And thinking gives you a way better answer, especially when you're talking about open source and open weight models, which I kind of use a lot. So you would have to figure out that, okay, where's the JSON in all of this? What if it was two JSON? What if the explanation or the reasoning process has some JSON bits as well? How do you get the best answer possible? That's a lot of logic to write. I mean, people don't think about it. Like chain of thought could have a lot of crazy braces going around and your JSON parser would break. BAML takes care of those things. But by far my favorite feature, and I know this answer is going long and you're itching to add the next one, is
No, no, we can.
semantic streaming. And I know you love that
I-
one as well.
Dude, I didn't know about this until your stream, and it's awesome, right? Like, because before this, I was streaming. I would wait for things to stream. I would even change the way my code is written for the experience of that streaming. Because I would do it like YAML, for example. Because now I know YAML, I can stream portions at a time.
Yeah.
Now, just being able to semantically stream and only stream a citation when it's done, it makes RAG look way better on the front end.
Much better.
That experience is,
For the viewers, semantic streaming is BAML's concept that you have a big JSON object, let's say with arrays and stuff like that. Now, waiting for the LLM to, finish the entire thing would just take so much time. So everybody else just shows a loader because, you can't parse JSON till it's done. But BAML allows you to parse JSON and spit out events that, okay, this part is done now, this part is done. So it's incrementally parsing that JSON, which allows you to do crazy stuff on the front end.
Yeah. Now, there are other things that people have done, like partial streaming. Like the models will stream the JSON so you can start streaming it. And, Pydantic does some stuff
Pydantic
there.
has done some
stuff here.
Yeah.
But the way you can just define the individual components of the semantic streaming, that was like mind-blowing for me. And I was using it already, but I wasn't using that feature. That was crazy.
Semantic streaming along with the forgiving BAML parser is the best combination. Right? You can have chain of thought, you could have multi-line strings, you can have semantic streaming, and it just works. Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome.